Are you over liquid lash glues? Have you tried magnetic lashes and they just don't fit right? Are you interested in pre-glued clusters but you just can't justify the price per wear? Glue pads might be the solution you're looking for. Today I'm reviewing the LINX lash clusters and glue pads. And I am indeed wearing them today. What do you think? Let me know. Hopefully they suit me. I think they look pretty nice. I'm going to quickly cover the clusters first, and then I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes, which is the glue pads. As always, you can use the chapters below to skip around. I'm going to do a full breakdown of the value, comfort, and staying power, and then I'm going to get into my main question, which is, are LINX glue pads an alternative to Navo glue pads? LINX offer lashes in a few different formats. They have regular clusters, they have regular strip lashes, and they also offer ribbons. Because my main motivation was to test out the glue pads, I just went with what I know, so I chose the minimal medley box of lash clusters, because I usually want to get clusters in a variety of lengths. The minimal style is just like it sounds. It is the most minimal and natural of their lash clusters. This box contains clusters in 10, 12, 14, and 16 millimeter lengths, with a total of 120 clusters for $20. I think that's a great value. It is a bit less if you don't use all of the lengths. I won't be using the 16 millimeters here at the bottom because the 14 millimeters are already pretty long on me, but I still think this is a pretty good price for this amount of clusters that don't come with any glue on them. These are fairly good quality clusters and they hold up quite nicely for multi-day wear, and I think they would also hold up really well for single day wear where you just wear them one day at a time, but you reuse them. The LINX product page even tells you how to clean them for reuse, in other words, lash laundry, which does imply that you can wash them and reuse them even after wearing them for multiple days in a row, and they might be sturdy enough for that, but personally, I wouldn't recommend doing that just for hygiene purposes. After wearing them for a number of days, I'm just like, ready to toss them. Who knows what's been getting in there. And I think that lashes never quite look as nice and they don't hold their curl structure completely after doing lash laundry on them. LINX quality control might be a little bit lax because the clusters have a lot of variation. What I mean by that is that the clusters kind of have different shapes to them. So some of them have really long lashes at the edges, and some of them only have long lashes on one side, whereas the other side is quite short. And then some of the clusters have a spine that's just a little bit too long, like it wasn't cut off properly, so I have to trim off that excess spine before I apply. It's not a huge deal, but it is worth mentioning, and I think I personally won't be ordering clusters from LINX again. But they're very serviceable and they're a great value, so I think these would actually be a good cluster to learn with. Okay, let's get to the main topic, the glue. These are the LINX dashes, and they are inexplicably spelled with Z's. I presume that they're pronounced dashes because they have this, dashes for your lashes. These glue pads are pretty much the only alternative I have found online in my search for alternatives to Navo glue pads, or as they call, lash stickies. This is a surprisingly rare kind of product to find. Separate glue pads that are sold separately and you apply them to clusters and they can be applied to any cluster. This is the only other type of this kind of product that I have found, other than Navo. The LINX dashes come in black and clear, and at the time of recording, these cost $8 for 150 dashes. I went with the clear option, so you can't really see them very well in the package, but I am pretty happy with my choice. Perhaps the answer to the question of value is apparent. The only thing that's potentially low value about these is the packaging. It's quite minimal and it's paper-based, so it's not super sturdy. It definitely does the job of protecting them, and I think it creates less waste than other brands. It uses less plastic at least, but I'm not sure how well they would hold up for travel. I also noticed that quality control is a little bit questionable in this department too. There's a lot of variation among the glue pads also. Some are a lot wider than the cluster width, some are narrower than the clusters, some are really tall. There's just a lot of sizes and shapes going on. Earlier today when I was applying, I even had one glue pad that was just so much wider than the lash. It was sticking out on both sides and I had to trim off the excess glue. So those are the only things that I wanted to note, but other than that, yes, these are a great value. Assuming you use 5 clusters per eye, you would use 10 clusters per set and thus 10 glue pads per set. Just based on those numbers, it would sound like you would get around 15 sets from one box or envelope, whatever this is. But I'm gonna knock that down to 14 sets out of one package just because accidents do happen. Even when you're super careful, just occasionally glue pads get messed up. Now let's see how much that would cost. That means each set would cost basically 57 cents. And let's just say you get 3 good days of wear out of each set. then each day of wear would only cost 20 cents. Compared to Navo's lash stickies, that is actually an incredible value. So what's the catch? Can these completely replace Navo glue pads? I will address that question in a bit, but first let's talk comfort. With any lashes that you keep on for multiple days, the comfort is going to depend a lot on your application. So it's really important to take your time and get the application right. If a cluster is too close to your lash line or too far away, or it's kind of at a weird angle, or anything is off, and your gut tells you it doesn't feel right, then I would definitely fix it at application. The LINX dashes function more like a liquid glue from other brands such as Lilac Street or Lashify. What that means is that the clusters and the glue attach directly to your natural lashes. Unlike Navo or Silly George glue pads that act more like big glue cushions that sit at the border between the lashes and the waterline. The dashes are not anchored to any actual skin, which means that they do feel a little bit heavier on the natural lashes. At least to me, that feels more noticeable. Whereas a glue cushion style of glue pad feels more weightless because it's partly anchoring onto the skin and not totally weighing the lashes down. When I applied my first set of these clusters, I wasn't that careful and I definitely paid the price for it. But I definitely learned my lesson, and subsequent applications have been really comfortable actually to wear for multiple days, surprisingly so. Sometimes I completely forget that I'm wearing them at all and I have to be careful not to like go in for a full eye rub. And that has been one of the biggest surprises for me. I always thought I would prefer single day wear over multi-day wear because multi-day wear lash glue never stayed well on me. But these have actually really good staying power on me, and I end up wearing my sets for more days than I anticipated because they continue to look nice and they feel fine and they're staying on. So why not? I don't even hugely mind sleeping with them on either. The glue is strong enough to make showers and pillows not too threatening. If I do a set with the longer clusters, so the 14 millimeters on me, then I do notice them more on my pillow versus if I do a shorter set like this. My current map is 10, 12, 12, 10, and on a shorter set like that, I don't actually feel it as much on my pillow. I'm able to kind of turn my face into the pillow more before my lashes hit them. So your comfort side sleeping on a pillow will definitely depend on the length of clusters that you use to make your lash map. This glue even lasted through an intense day of skiing. On this particular day, I was just wearing sunglasses. I didn't want to wear my whole goggles because it was a nice day and my goggles and helmet didn't really fit very well at the time. And my eyes kept watering from going at such high speeds, and they still stayed on just fine. The only thing is that the glue is so sticky that sometimes I wake up with my eyes somewhat glued together. This was mostly an issue on my first application, but as you get used to using these, they won't do that as much. Now, something else surprised me about these too. If you've watched any of my other videos, you might know that I struggle a lot with clusters kind of drooping down after the first day when my natural lashes lose their curl. So at this point you might be wondering, aren't the LINX clusters and glue also drooping on me? The answer is kind of, but not entirely in a bad way. I'm gonna grace you with some hand-drawn diagrams to try to explain this. The LINX glue pads and also liquid glues from traditional brands attach to the natural lashes. So the base of them kind of follows the natural lashes no matter where they're pointing. When my natural lashes lose their curl, my natural lashes point down, and then the lash cluster also points downward. Of course, the ends are kind of separate because my natural ends are pointing down and the clusters are curling up, but they're not totally separate. They're still like together for half of the journey, if that makes sense. And I find that I can address the ends a little bit if I use a curler very carefully on just the ends, the tips of my natural lashes. It gives my end a little bit of a boost. On the other hand, the more cushiony glue pads that are on the bottom part of this diagram, so that's glue like Silly George or Navo or Henna Coco, 99 Dreams, those lashes sit a little bit lower because they're in between the lash line and the waterline. They're like just kind of on that borderline. And the thicker glue pad also creates a bit of a gap between the cluster spine and the lashes. On day one, both types of glue look great because my natural lashes are going in the same direction. Everybody's happy. But once my natural lashes uncurl, that separation becomes more apparent because the glue cushion stays anchored in the same place, but then my natural lashes start pushing down on the tips of the clusters. So it feels like their angle changes more. And it's more apparent that there are two different types of lashes going on that are sitting at two totally different angles. And thus my natural lashes pointing down through the clusters are a lot more apparent. One final point about application. With standard or average cluster sizes like these and other brands, I usually find that 3 clusters looks like too few lashes on my eyes, and 4 clusters kind of struggle to fit because I really run out of natural lashes in my inner corners. I just don't have a lot of density there. So I often find myself wanting to apply 3.5 clusters to each eye. That's kind of my sweet spot. But it's not always doable with glue pads because Silly George, for example, way too strong to cut in half. It will completely ruin the lash. And Navo glue pads also, surprisingly, they do this really stringing thing when you try to cut them at all. But with LINX, it was actually really easy. Once a glue pad is applied to a cluster, I had no problem just going in with my little scissors and chopping it in half. The glue didn't string out weirdly, it just one half came off of the scissors and the other half stayed on, and I pulled it off the scissors and nothing happened. It was fine. And I actually did that with my application today. So the inner corners, these clusters here in the inner corners, those are 2 halves of a whole. I just chopped it in half. Will those half clusters stay on as well? Probably not as much as a full cluster would, but it's still a huge plus in getting my lash map right for my eye shape. Alright, damage and removal. When lash glue is as strong and long lasting as this one is, damage and removal can be some concerns. But fortunately, I found these just as easy as other cluster types to remove. The website says to soak the lashes in micellar water if you want to reuse them. I tried removing them with micellar water the first time, and they definitely came off eventually, but it did take a number of gentle passes. On the other eye, I went for oil-based makeup remover, and I found that that was a lot quicker to remove them. Of course, it's oil. And I think less friction just in general is better for your lashes. I would definitely recommend oil to remove unless you plan to reuse them, in which case you should just use micellar water. And of course, as always, with multi-day wear lashes, some natural lashes are going to come off as you remove them because they were just kind of being held on by the clusters and glue. I've never seen an excess amount of natural lashes come out with these, so I think that they're not really damaging my lashes too much, but I would say to always give your lashes a break between sets if you can. So overall, I don't think that damage or removal are big concerns with these lashes. So what's the catch? The one major issue I have with LINX dashes is that they don't do what I got them for. If you've seen my videos about Navo products, you know that I love their lash stickies, and that is because they allow me to wear lashes for single days at a time. It's just so much more flexible to be able to use clusters in a non-consecutive fashion. I can choose which days to put them on and which days to not put them on, and it doesn't have to be in a row. I don't have to worry about washing my face, or showering, or sleeping with them on. There are other brands that make pre-glued clusters that act in this same way, such as 99 Dreams and Henna Coco, but the problem is that they don't sell their glue separately. They only sell the pre-glued clusters. So once that glue pad runs out, you need to apply basically liquid glue is what they offer after that. And so, as I said, I have been on the hunt for an alternative to the Navo lash stickies. Shortly after I made my video about Navo, they increased their shipping and custom fees for US customers because of the tariffs, which is totally understandable, but they unfortunately put the products into a price range that I couldn't recommend anymore. And it also wasn't a price that I wanted to pay for more lash stickies. I love the concept of stick-on, pull-off, reusable glue pads that can be theoretically used with any lash cluster. So I've been scouring the internet for a lash glue that can perform that way. The closest and pretty much only alternative I found was the LINX dashes. The dashes are sold separately and in large quantities at a great price, so it felt really promising, but they don't work for single-day reusability at all. Once you've had the dashes applied for a few hours, the glue kind of sets in, and then at that point, the lashes will not really come off very well. I tried at the end of the first day to see if they would easily pull off, and of course that's not what they're made for. They're made for multi-day use, so they didn't want to let go. Your only options are to keep wearing them, or to scrub them off with micellar water or oil. They work great for what they're made for, which is multi-day wear, but unfortunately they're not made for the single-day use I was looking for. And that is the answer to my big question. Can LINX dashes replace Navo lash stickies? No, they actually really can't. And that is okay. They serve a different purpose, and they do really well at that. Also, I recently found out that Navo removed their extra customs fees, and they brought their shipping price down to a flat $10 for all US orders. So that kind of brings their products back into a reasonable price range, which is a huge win. Woo! However, I'll still be keeping an eye out for alternatives just in case something happens to the Navo brand. And I'm also always on the lookout for other cool new lash innovations. If you have a product that you want me to try that I don't know about, then please leave a comment and I will look into it. Alright, to sum all of this up, Are LINX dashes and clusters worth it? For a certain type of lash user, the answer is a resounding yes. And that is you if you don't like applying clusters with messy liquid glue, if you want the flexibility of using any kind of clusters, not just the pre-glued clusters that are offered, if you want to wear a set for multiple days in a row to get the best value out of your clusters and glue, and if you're willing to be a little bit mindful of your lashes while you're washing your face, showering, sleeping. If that sounds like you, then the LINX dashes might be the quick and easy lash glue solution that you've been looking for. And in that case, yeah, I highly recommend them. Alright, I think that's a wrap for today. If you're interested in lash products, beauty products, and reviews, things like that, then feel free to subscribe. With me, it's honest reviews always. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!